Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
I am Dr. Mike and Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, buy t-shirts, turn on notifications, leave comments, work images of us dead on a slab into your necrophilia fantasies. Whatever it is you need to do, it's Halloween. There's no judgments here.
Yeah, most of that, folks. Think you'll be
It's
able
Halloween.
You'll be able to sort out. I might be creating distance between me and one of those suggestions, but I'll leave it to you to sort that out. But it is Halloween month, and we're back again talking about games that kind of fit that well, retro games that kind of fit the Hollywood theme. And what better from a Halloween theme than zombies? And what better than having your neighbors taken out? So, Zombies Ate My Neighbors by LucasArts was significantly involved with this. Konami. So I this looks, feels, and acts like very much a LucasArts project, and so I don't know if Konami was mostly involved in the packaging and distribution.
But yeah, I believe they were the publisher. LucasArts were the ones who actually made the game.
Yeah, and it's got all the LucasArts nice kind of Curse of Monkey Island kind of feel stuff, all the really kind of cool things, creative, wacky creatures to have to deal with, humor, probably slightly stereotypical characters here and there, but but overall just the fun that is LucasArts in terms of it. So this is a super fun game, available in a lot of ways. So I'll be interested in hearing, Mike, how you interact and consume this. What was super excited about when I got my Legends Ultimate is in kind of the original 350 games that came with the Legends 1.0. Zombies Ate My Neighbors was one of those. And so,
nice.
So it kind of comes. So when you get your mini, you got a shot. Or you always see you got your mini, you serve behind.
Oh, you don't? I was going to say, you don't see that? I know it's a little dark in the studio today, but it's just glowing back there.
Yeah, see, Legends Ultimate mini countdown continues. So one day, maybe no signs of life, no additional messages from that games, but yeah,
nothing.
We are in fall, so hopefully soon. But I think there's a pretty good chance, and I'm going to be positive when you get your Legends Ultimate Mini, that it'll be one of the games on there, which would be great. It's a good, it's great to play it with the control deck on a Legends system. So that'll be kind of fun to do. But since we'll just go with you don't have it right now. We'll pretend you don't have your mini right now. How else would you interact with this? Where would you play this? Is this a Super Console X thing?
For the purposes of this, I was playing on Super Console X, and it's pretty cool because I got to introduce this game to the household. I was the only one who'd ever played this before. It was very quickly adopted by everyone.
Yeah.
So
it is a fun, not easy game. Again, it's got all the humor and creativity in it. I think around 45 levels to kind of go through, so you've got plenty.
Sounds right. Yeah,
and cool, punny, clever captions for each chapter. Different theming runs into, you get all sorts of things, whether it's a neighborhood, supermarket / mall kind of situation, laboratory. You got all sorts of different kind of things going on, and all sorts of different creatures to deal with. You start off early on, primarily zombies. And for those of you not familiar with the game, the basic gist, to oversimplify it, is at each level, your responsibility is to secure as many neighbors as possible. And once you reach a certain level of neighbors, and you can pick up other little items that can help you along the way as well. But once you reach a certain level of getting the neighbors, an exit opens for you and allows you to leave and proceed forward to the next level. One of the kind of downsides on it, and so this is probably something you ran into on Super Console X, is the kind of save functionality is for a lot of the console games was kind of code based. And so you could kind of use the code and re-enter the code, but you didn't necessarily you could come back to that same level, but your inventory kind of dropped at that point.
Yeah, the codes are basically just to take you to the level.
Yeah, so if you had kind of built up a good head of steam, and then things didn't go so well, then you got to kind of start over on some of those things. So one of the real benefits, sorry to kind of pick at a scab here, about the Legends solution is that the Legends does offer save slots for a lot of the games. So a very strong habit of mine for a couple of these games. Aladdin is another one that I do this with a lot as well. Get into that next level and I save one right away, so that if I don't get off to a particularly good start, I can kind of go back. Or if I get off to a halfway decent start, I then save it there, so that when I resume, I don't have that kind of reset on some of those things. So highly recommend Zombie Ate My Neighbors on the At Games platform, because it's a little better save world for you on that. But so what did you think of the game overall?
So I was a fan of this. This is a game that I remember playing early, particularly a friend of mine had the Super Nintendo version, and then I ended up picking up the Sega Genesis version. At their core, they're the same game. They look nearly identical. It's all the same levels and everything. There's some minor differences though, which people online will quibble over forever, which is better. So for my standing, the game over screen is better on Genesis. Super Nintendo, it is censored. Yep. You just have this sort of slime that drips down. In Sega Genesis, your screen gets covered in blood. Yep. And it says game over. Super Nintendo, you can't have that. The layout of the screen, though, in Sega Genesis is a little bit different. I do have to say the screen layout works better in Super Nintendo. So,
yeah, that has been one when folks talk about it, the screen layout, because one thing that's nice, and it's much like, it's a favorite of mine, I bring it up a lot, Battlezone. You get kind of an overhead HUD display, and on the Super Nintendo and on the At Games version, that's basically superimposed over your playfield. So it basically shows you by little dots where your neighbors are at, or at least when you're getting close to some neighbors, so you have an idea, because these are kind of basically incomprehensible mazes on each level, and to kind of have that all figured out is a little hard, but you can at least say somebody's up to my left a little bit. All I need to do is figure out how to get there, and there are a lot of interesting ways to get there, but I got to get up there and get that. The downside on that approach is sometimes that's covering up kind of a key area or obscures your view a little bit. And so it seemed on the Sega system, they can actually pull that out and put it more in a bezel on the side, which avoids, blocking your playing field. Great. But also reduces your playing field, which is kind of helpful to have that peripheral vision going to see what you need to deal with left or right. So
yeah, and that's where the argument comes in. I do understand it is easier to see everything on the HUD when it's in that little black bar on the side. Mm-hmm. But with that covering part of your playfield, it makes gameplay more difficult on a game that isn't super easy to get through.
No, and it is cool because there's a variety of weapons and ways you can go through. Starting with a squirt gun, you end up having soda cans that can explode. A bazooka, which is kind of handy thing. A bazooka with quite a kick, kind of launches you back every time you fire it, and it can take out walls and all those types of things. But different foes in this game, different approaches work better with them. It's the kind of thing you want in a game, is to say, okay, how do I take this guy out? And there are some things that work well. There's potions you can take, many of which help you. A couple don't help you necessarily, and so it's kind of an interesting gameplay there. You've got some strategy elements and different things to go, or you can kind of button bash and try and take everything out with the squirt gun, but I don't recommend it because the squirt gun's not particularly effective as you kind of move along. Is there a particular, so there's, in my background there is indeed a large giant baby, and just like Mike mentioned in a recent show we did around Elvira, where he had a connection. I have had a connection with a giant baby before, and I'll include a picture of that. in the show here for you. You'll get a
I have a
chance to kind of
sneaking
see.
suspicion.
Yeah. So that's my kind of connection. We're tight. Giant Baby and I go way back, and so that's pretty cool. So the Giant Baby is always pretty cool. There's aliens, and not only aliens on foot, but their spaceship. There's a highly annoying chainsaw guy who has the extra bonus feature, which sometimes actually helps you, is he takes out walls, as particular hedges rather in particular, and kind of cruises through there, which one makes it easier for him to get to you, not so good, but two opens up you a couple other avenues of escape or moving around, which sometimes is helpful. So good variety of characters, a lot of good gameplay, not easy. And that's where that save function comes in, ideally. I recommend the At Games platform for it, but you at least do have the ability to kind of restart a level on that. But I'm glad to see the household has gravitated. It is really a fun game.
It is, yeah. And we've been mostly playing the Super Nintendo version. I did spring the sequel on them too. Didn't get the same kind of traction though.
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty. I mean, it is what it is in terms of gameplay, but the gameplay's solid, and so it's fun. It is challenging. Lots of levels to go through. Lots of variety. Do you have any particular foe you run across in this that is like your least favorite? Or
so my favorite is actually, believe it or not, the zombies in the very beginning of the game, because at the time when this came out, and this is going to be impossible for people to believe, in the wake of the Dawn of the Dead remake kicking off the whole zombie wave that then peaked with creation of Walking Dead, and then over saturated the market from there forward. So it's hard to believe, but there was a big lull in zombie related content in the 90s. There just wasn't a lot of zombie stuff coming out. Even the company that we had made Evil Bong with, one of their few movies during that time that had come out, because they were going through some legal stuff at one point in the 90s. They put out a zombie movie, and I remember just being like, why? What is like, who wants to see a zombie movie? Like, it was a weird time where zombies weren't really a thing. There was people who loved the Romero movies and Fulci Zombie and things like that were already considered classics. But the idea of like making new zombie stuff, and when it did occasionally pop up, it was stuff like Uwe Boll's House of the Dead and things like that. So zombie content in the 90s just wasn't a thing you really saw. So it was cool to see like zombies in something, because that wasn't a thing that was happening, and it wasn't like a bad thing. Like, this was a super fun game. So that was cool as a kid. So this game, and I believe it might actually kick this off. There's a thing that happened in horror parody related stuff in the 90s where you got the Jason character, like somebody with a hockey mask on, like you do in this. And that Jason character was always carrying a chainsaw. And you actually see this in a bunch of stuff, from National Lampoon to actual like horror parody movies to different things. This was one of the early examples of it. And horror fans get super bent out of shape about this sometimes. They're like, Jason never used a chainsaw, which is true. Jason never, ever used a chainsaw. But when you're wearing a hockey mask and things like that, you are crossing a dangerous line into the idea of like how much you can really borrow from that very specific look of Jason wearing the hockey mask and saying you're not stealing that and you're not infringing on their copyright and trademark and things like that. So without infringing on their IP, you need to do something like give Jason a weapon he doesn't use. So I understand why they went with the chainsaw, because Jason doesn't use chainsaws. There's only one instance in the entire franchise where he uses a motorized weapon at all, and it's for one kill. He uses, knives, rakes, pitchforks, machetes a lot, axes, things like that. Never, ever a chainsaw. So I think this is one of the things that really popularized that, of like, here's how we parody it and not get sued. We give him a chainsaw. So it's always funny to me when I see that, because I know online there are people who just rage about this for hours and hours. I've seen videos where people just rage about this. So that's always super fun to me. Really, what always sticks out to me though is the variety of the levels.
Yeah.
Like it's just really cool, really interesting stuff. Even in the way you get around some of the levels, like you were saying, Chainsaw Jason cutting a hole that you can then use to escape, using trampolines to jump over hedges and different obstacles and things. And my favorite, because again, going back to at that time, I'd never seen this before. Now there's a million games that have done this, but there's a sequence that's in a mall, which at that time I had never seen in a video game before.
With escalators and everything.
Yep.
And so
yeah. There's multiple levels to it. There's just like a mall. And again, there's a bunch of games that ultimately did that now, but at that time, zombies and malls and all this other stuff that was happening in this game just weren't being done in other games. So this is just this weird, very unique game, and that's why I always liked it.
Yeah, and I think they were really counting on that. So the chainsaw clearly takes us out of any confusion with Jason, particularly because the hockey mask, and you're more the pro than I am, but I kind of believe in general the hockey mask's markings are perilously close to Jason, at least very reminiscent, I should say. So
yes,
which is a choice. I mean, you could maybe choose to
very,
choose
very
a different
close.
color.
Well, that's a thing that happened around this time too. So Splatterhouse, which is a game we talked about on last year's Halloween stuff, Splatterhouse came out in Japan. The character's not wearing a hockey mask, contrary to how it looks. It's not actually a hockey mask. It is intentionally reminiscent, though, of the Jason mask. In the sequels, they took it a lot further away from that. It's more of a skull mask with holes on the sides of it. But when they initially ported Splatterhouse to the US, they changed the color of the mask to red. So when you're playing ports of it and things like that now of the original Splatterhouse, you can tell what version you're playing, if it's the international or the US, by the color of the mask, because it's white in the international versions and red in the US versions for that very reason. Because in the first game, it looks a lot like a hockey mask and he looks a lot like Jason.
Yes, he does. Cool. Well, if you're looking for some fun Halloween appropriate games to play, we've already covered one this month, and now this is our second. Highly recommend this. Available on a lot of platforms. Really fun play. As Mike mentioned, creative levels. I mean, there's some fundamentals to each level that kind of stay the same. You got this maze-ish kind of thing, but the way you navigate, there's some different solutions. There are different keys you can pick up, hidden surprises, other little goodies from there. Tons of fun to play, and not so precise that for the younger folks that want to kind of play it. If you're talking about kids playing it, you don't have to be like pinpoint precise. You've got a little bit of latitude to do it, so it's a very kind of approachable game, even though actually completing levels and stuff is not necessarily an easy feat. The general gameplay is not ultimately highly precision oriented.
Yeah, it's difficult, but we're not talking about like Ghouls and Goblins type stuff where it's just a game like Ghouls and Goblins is just instantly punishing. Yep. And puts most people off of ever delving further into that game right away.
So we highly recommend you check it out. Zombies Ate My Neighbors if you haven't. Very, very fun game. Anything else you'd like to add for this show, Mike?
Not too much. This was actually just recently re-released for Steam and all the virtual console stuff and all that. I saw some complaints about the reissue because it doesn't really include any bonus stuff. It's just the 2 core games.
Interesting. Cool. I'll have to look at that a little bit and kind of see, because I'm due for another Steam edition, so I'll check that out.
I think it's probably still worth getting. I think what's happened though recently, and especially like we had mentioned, the Castlevania collection and things like that, like those are such robust collections, not coming with a ton of games, multiple versions of the games to cover different territories. The Castlevania thing comes with a digital book that has artwork and stories behind the games and all kinds of stuff like that. So I mean, there's just so much content, and this is similarly priced, and it's just Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol, the sequel. So
cool. Well, check it out. I think you guys will have some fun, and we appreciate you watching. Leave us some comments. If you have a preference between the original or sequel, or if there's anything we missed on this that you wish we had brought up. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.